Hello and welcome to the Week in Nintendo at Good Vibes Gaming. I'm Brandon Miracle, and as always, I'm joined by Steve Bowling.
Hello.
So this week, for once, there's a lot of Nintendo stuff actually happening. We had a Nintendo Direct, an Indie World, MEO came out the day that we're recording this, and we even got to take a look at Nintendo's museum opening up in Japan. But before we get into all that stuff, Steve, I want to know what you've been playing.
This week has been a fairly busy one for me with Nintendo platforms. I crushed my way through Quest 3. As you know, our boy John is in that. So I picked it up intending to just support John and his career as a voice actor. But I decided to play it because I spent money on it and I couldn't put it down. It's so good. It's ridiculously good. On top of that, I have sunk several hours into MEO. I played the demo that Nintendo released that let you play through the full first two chapters of the game. Save data carries over, so no real loss there. And man, I forgot how much I like these games. We've been talking about it quite a bit because the release has been coming up here on the Week in Nintendo. But it's really nice to go back to it and realize just how much love Nintendo has put into these, because I just started to get wrapped up in the story. And of course, right as soon as it begins to get good, that's when the demo ends.
I saw some buzz on Twitter from people who were playing it because they released like a chapter, and then a week later they released another chapter, and then they eventually released chapter 3 in the demo. I saw some buzz on Twitter of people who were kind of playing it in tandem and then having conversations being like, oh, what's going to happen? Kind of like watching episodes of TV every week. And I thought that was kind of cool. It would almost be neat if in the future we got like a freemium Famicom Detective Club that was just a weekly drop. I guess it wouldn't be too different from the Satellaview Famicom Detective Club, because that was released on a schedule.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, because as you were kind of talking about the kind of drip feed of chapters through the demo, which is a really cool thing for Nintendo to do, by the way. I started to key in on the same thing, that like an episodic version of a Famicom Detective Club game would be cool, because you'd have a kind of a whole community following the game as it progressed, right? As new chapters released. And I do think that would be interesting. It kind of reminds me of, for a while, Telltale was doing stuff like that as well, back in the Wii days. And I think they also did that with a Homestar Runner game, like a Strong Bad game, I think was also an episodic game. But that was kind of like a fad back in that generation, to release episodic content, have people playing it. And honestly, it's one of those ones that I wish didn't go away, because I think for these, well, let's just call it what it is, smaller releases from Nintendo, it would be really interesting to have a community that kind of followed along and played the game on a similar schedule. Because I know that our community right now over at the Winter Circle is playing Famicom Detective Club 1 and 2, and they're kind of doing like a book club style playthrough of it, where they play through a certain amount and then they discuss what their findings and what they've been enjoying about the game. And I think that would be a cool avenue to explore future games in the series. But right now, I mean, as MEO goes, I'm only 3 chapters deep, and I'm really enjoying it.
I was really surprised by the review reception to this game. Like, I expected it to be positive. I was not expecting the overwhelming positivity that it's getting. Just like tons of praise for the story specifically, which is great given that it's an adventure game. But yeah, I was not expecting this response. I am more jazzed about MEO than I was before, and I was already jazzed.
Yeah, John tweeted an excerpt from Vuk's review. I think he said Vuk's. I know the guy, and I still don't know if it's Vuk's or like Vooks, like books. but they basically tweeted that it was like, it had moments that will last with them for the rest of their lives. And I'm like, that is nuts. Like, that has me so interested in finding out what happens further down the line in these games, because the previous two go places. Like, they get pretty dark and pretty unsettling. but I wouldn't say that they left an imprint on me that like, oh God, I'm not going to forget this. So yeah, this is a game that unfortunately for me, I'm recording this episode of the Week in Nintendo literally moments before I get in my car and I drive to Seattle for PAX. So I don't know how I'm going to find the time because obviously we have a lot of stuff to do, and I have a feeling we're going to have a lot more Nintendo stuff to discuss after PAX. I mean, they're bringing Echoes of Wisdom to PAX, so I can say by tomorrow I'll have played Echoes of Wisdom like on the show floor. So I'm really excited to see what we have there, but I do need to make time to fit MEO into my schedule because it's certainly a game that I think if the reviews are to be believed, and I generally trust some of those reviewers that are out there, that this is going to be like a high watermark, at least for the Famicom Detective Club series.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into it myself. It inspired me to get back into The Girl Who Stands Behind because I took a break from it for a couple weeks to play Cat Quest, actually.
Yeah.
I bought the entire trilogy. I played Cat Quest 1 while I was waiting for my copy of Cat Quest 3 to show up, and
nice.
I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. So, oops.
Yeah, it's a great surprise. The Cat Quest series is surprisingly good. I own the other two. Those were early days for the Switch, and so they're kind of like when you review a console, publishers will just be like, "Here's everything," and so it was one of those games that I got when I was reviewing the Switch, and I just kind of it went to the side of the pile, and now I really regret that because Cat Quest is dope. I do want to point this out. Have you seen the MEO merch that Nintendo of Japan just dropped?
I saw that there was a handbag.
Yeah, there's a handbag. There's a bag head handbag, and I need that so bad.
That's crazy. I love that. Yeah, they need to release stuff like that here. It's such a shame when they don't.
Yeah, it feels like every other region gets better merch than we do. Like we get like the t-shirts and stuff, but like they get so many fun, creative things. And I just wish that Nintendo realized that fans like us would pay good money to get our hands on these.
Speaking of something that fans would pay good money to get their hands on, Nintendo's out of replacement parts for the new Nintendo 3DS. You can't get them repaired anymore.
Yeah, that is a shame. So if you've been watching the channel, I recently did a video on all the first party 3DS games that came out after the Switch. And because of that, you, Brandon, as well as I and John, we all spent a considerable amount of time with our 3DSs in these last couple of weeks filming the footage. So if you don't know, a little behind the scenes information is that the different shots are the three of us. So if you see the new 3DS in one photo, that's John. The new 3DS XL is Brandon, and the new 2DS is me. And so we all played like about 10 or 15 different 3DS games for varying amounts of time for these videos. And it reminded me of just how unique of a system that is, and how much fun it is to play games specifically built for that console. And it's sad to me that we're now in an era where we have to treat these consoles like treasures because there's no going back if they get damaged.
We're also in a fortunate position where there are just a lot of these out there. So if something does happen to your system, there's a pretty good chance you'll be able to find another one. But it does suck that if something happened to your personal system, that has sentimental value, that you're just kind of out of luck. I'm sure there are ways to repair it yourself, but that's going to get more and more difficult, I think.
Right. And the big thing for me is that unlike other systems, if you talk about Nintendo's legacy consoles, even going as far as like the original DS, right? It is fairly easy to find a hardware equivalent to those that is playable. Like, the DS had a touch screen. Lots of people can make touch screens, but the 3DS has that, parallax barrier 3D glassesless screen. Nobody's making those. And I don't know that we're going to have like a hardware alternative to the 3DS anytime soon, like that can actually recreate the 3D effect, which is a super cool effect that it honestly in recent years has been kind of underrated. Uh, yeah, it's just a shame that, people that want to experience 3DSs will likely have to do so in a way that compromises it.
I think we will eventually get something that works, but I think it'll be quite some time from now. And for now, I think people should just spend time trying to preserve the 3DSs they have, figure out how to repair the things that they can repair. Um, just treat it with care.
Absolutely.
But for other Nintendo news that we've got going on, Nintendo a couple weeks back had a Nintendo Direct for their museum, which is really funny.
That is really funny.
So we got a tour of the Nintendo Museum in, I think it was Tokyo or in
Kyoto.
Japan. Kyoto, okay. And it's a museum of their history. So there's a lot of hardware history in there. There's interactive experiences. You can make your own Hanafuda cards. You can learn how to play for the right price because all those activities cost differing amounts of money.
Yeah, that part kind of rubs me the wrong way. When I think museum, I think that you pay the fee to enter, and then you get to experience the exhibits.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, it's like you purchase a set amount of tickets, and each thing costs like a different amount, and you can always go buy more during your visit. But I mean, basically, it's like a museum with DLC.
Actually,
oh, you can't.
I think they made it clear that you have to come back.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's so dumb.
And the funniest part is, though, some of those things look stupidly fun to do.
Yeah.
Like the giant Wii remote. I want to play that with a friend. I want two people lifting a Wii remote to play Wii Sports. That seems super cool to me. Playing with a giant N64 controller and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't love the idea that you have to make multiple trips to this museum to experience everything it has to offer. It feels a bit greedy. Like Nintendo is one of the most valuable companies in Japan, and this museum is in their home turf. Like, I'm sure they'll do fine.
Yeah, I wonder if part of it is to avoid like overpopulating the museum as well. Because even to get in, it's on a lottery system. And that's fairly common in Japan, specifically to like stop scalping and whatnot. So like,
yeah,
I get it, but I mean, I think it would be better if your ticket to get in just allotted you a certain amount of time in the museum, and then once that time's up, you have to leave.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer that too. As somebody who someday plans to go to Japan, and now this museum is on my list of things to do, I'd like to make just one trip to it because obviously there will be other things I want to do. And I hate to think that I'd go in, have an awesome time, but still be wanting to do additional things and not have the opportunity to do them because I couldn't win a lottery to get back in. That seems a little disappointing to me. I certainly hope that.
It seems hard enough as like a foreigner. Like if you're planning a trip to Japan, you just have to kind of hope that you succeed in the lottery so you can buy a ticket and go, or you're just out of luck.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it feels like you probably need a friend who lives overseas to help you with it.
Yeah.
And most people don't have that. And so it's unfortunate as a foreigner that this will be an extremely difficult thing to experience, especially because, I know folks like you and me, we go to Japan, this is high on the list of things to do. And so,
yeah.
Certainly it's similar for Super Nintendo World in Japan. You have to have the Japanese Universal Studios app on your phone, which is a hard thing to get on an American phone. And you have to then buy a ticket to Super Nintendo World often days in advance because it's so fully booked even now. My brother recently went to Japan and thought he'd be able to just go to Universal Studios Japan and go to Super Nintendo World, only to find out that they had sold out tickets for that day that he bought tickets into the park like weeks in advance. And so he just didn't, he got to see Super Nintendo World, but not visit it after flying to Japan to go there.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned his lesson the hard way. So I'm going to have to find somebody in Japan when I do eventually go and ask them to buy me a ticket. Like, who knows how far in advance?
I mean, outside of the frustrations of actually getting into the museum and seeing what it has to offer, it does look fairly cool. I did
Yes.
find that the like the hardware section of the museum looked a little
Underwhelming.
yeah, underwhelming, thin, not as expansive as I would have expected. Like there's a lot of stuff, but the way they're displaying it isn't very
It feels like an
impressive.
afterthought.
Yeah.
It feels like it's more amusement park than museum, which I
Mhm.
get it. Nintendo's all about fun, and the stuff they have does look really cool. For me, as a lifelong fan of Nintendo, I really would have liked to have seen more behind the scenes stuff. Like, show me about the development of some of these older games. You know, uh, Nintendo is infamous for showing and letting people play like really under polished, unfinished versions of their older titles. And you know, you can look at footage of Mario 64 with a completely different HUD, with all this other stuff, and you know that those Space World demos, those E3 demos from the 90s are still in a vault somewhere. I mean, you know, the GigaLeak showed us that Nintendo keeps these things.
Yeah.
And it would be awesome, amazing even, to have those builds running on consoles in the museum that you could try, or even just footage of them that you could look at, or documentation of what they were doing back then. Yeah, I was kind of sad to see that the hardware was just kind of like a glass case that you'd find in a room not too dissimilar to yours or mine,
Mhm.
you know, just stuffed with systems. I'm like, that's just a basic YouTuber setup is what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate them putting more effort into the amusement side, just to, give you activities that you can do while you're there. But I mean, it is a museum first, and it feels like that part isn't as important. um,
Yeah.
I do like they had that what is their baseball launcher called? I forget.
Oh man, that is escaping me as well, but I know exactly what you're referring to, and I really liked that room where you could hit the ball into specific things and you'd get different reactions based on where you smacked the ball.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
really cool.
I do like
Um,
the callback to pre-video game Nintendo in that space.
yeah, and I mean, the rooms themselves are also callbacks because they're designed to be what Japanese households would have looked like back then as well. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 experience, which is pretty sick. Um, and then of course you have the Hanafuda stuff. So like you can make your own Hanafuda cards, and then you can learn how to play. And it looks like they're doing some like floor projection, where the graphics appear on the surface you're playing on, so you can kind of see what you're doing and how to play. It looked really neat.
Yeah, that part I found really interesting. I own a deck of Nintendo Hanafuda cards that I got at Nintendo New York a very, very long time ago. But I don't know how to play it. So they've just been sitting there in the plastic as like a collectible for years and years now. And I've always wanted to have an idea of how to do that. And the idea that you can have something from the Nintendo Museum that is specific to your visit, that is custom made for you, is something that I think is really, really cool. If I ever get the chance to go, that is definitely one of the things I will spend my tickets on doing.
It's also worth noting that just the ticket you get, the card itself, is a collectible because it prints your me on it, since you have to buy your tickets with the My Nintendo app.
That's true. Although, can we even do that? Like that's a question too, right?
I don't know.
Can a foreigner buy a ticket to this museum with their My Nintendo? I don't think we can. I mean, I have a Japanese Nintendo account, so maybe I could figure it out. But
I
again,
feel like
layers of complexity.
I feel like they wouldn't have gone so far as to produce an English dialogue direct if there wasn't some way for foreigners to get access.
That's true. I don't think that Nintendo is going to completely cut foreigners out. I think it's going to be one of those really obscure things, though, that's hard to figure out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like trying to find your way through the subways the first time.
Man, I could go on for hours about how confounding my first visit to New York was, but I don't think that's this type of podcast.
No. Well, we do have one more big piece of Nintendo news, and I say one, but it's really just an amalgamation because it was a Nintendo Direct and an Indie World Showcase. We had a double-decker Direct, is what I've been calling it. And I had a pretty good time. I know you didn't as much.
I didn't. I was the only one who didn't get to be with you guys live for the Direct because my alarm clock decided I wouldn't wake up that morning. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just because recent Directs have been such bangers that I felt like this one was kind of just a middle of the road Direct. I don't think it was bad, but I don't think it measures up to more recent Directs, especially the one where we got Echoes of Wisdom. That was like a 11 out of 10 Direct, and I think this was like a 7. And I don't think that a 7 is necessarily bad. I just don't think that it's super hype inducing. Like, I had one super hype moment in the whole thing, and for me that was obviously Capcom Fighting Game Collection 2 with the revival of Capcom versus SNK. That for me, big moment, huge moment. Would have been screaming on stream for that. But like I said in our Discord privately, I think it had like one thing for each person on the crew. Like, Daniel got Tales, Derek got Castlevania, you got Pizza Tower. All good things, but I think taken holistically, I was just like, it was all right. I had like one really exciting moment, and I think every one of us had like one truly like super thing we hoped for kind of moment. And that doesn't make it bad, but it also means that for the other 90% of the Direct, I was just like, yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, I get that. I think I think there's a couple ways to look at it. Like, there's a lot of third-party content still coming to Switch, and that's reassuring when there's been so many, ports to Switch that have not been great, or like, you look at a game coming to multiple platforms and Switch isn't even in the conversation for you anymore because of how it runs. But a lot of the games we saw a lot of the games we saw during the Direct were games that should run just fine on any platform. So it was a little easier to be excited about them. I was pretty hyped actually for Power Stone.
Yes.
That was actually my biggest pop off, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. I popped off at Power Stone. And I was excited about Pizza Tower. Pizza Tower was just an inevitability, though. Like, been counting down the days for that one to just happen.
Yeah. Pizza Tower I picked up, and I haven't clicked with it yet. I'm surprised that I haven't, because I've watched a lot of footage and thought, damn, this looks incredible, but I've played like half an hour, and I just, it hasn't, I haven't found my groove with it yet, but I'm going to keep trying. Power Stone surprises me, though. I'm a huge Power Stone fan. I picked it up, it was a Dreamcast launch title in Japan. And so the original Power Stone holds a very special place in my heart. Power Stone 2 is okay. But I am similarly extremely excited. Having Capcom versus SNK 1 and 2 and Power Stone 1 and 2 in the same collection is just nuts.
I was also kind of hoping for Tatsunoko versus Capcom, but I'm just gonna throw that in an inevitable Capcom Fighting Collection 3.
Yeah, I have to say, Tatsunoko versus Capcom is an interesting one. It feels like of all of them, that should have been the easiest license for them to renegotiate, just because, two Japanese companies, Tatsunoko's not typically involved in fighting games. Should have been easy to be like, hey, we want to run this back and do this again. But it could also be that they're just kind of taking a wait and see approach. I mean, there's a lot of love for Tatsunoko versus Capcom now, but if memory serves, it did not do super well when it came out in the States. Like in Japan, yes, but here in America, just kind of flatline. And so I think they're trying to see what the interest is in these fighting game collections, and then maybe use that as a bargaining chip to go back to Tatsunoko and get a favorable deal to license all these characters for the US market, because I think that's where you run into a lot of difficulty. There was a pretty substantial delay between the Japanese and American releases of Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
A big problem too is that I don't think Western audiences are even familiar with Tatsunoko characters. Like I'm not.
Yeah. Admittedly, neither am I. But I knew it was a new Capcom versus game, and that was all I needed to hear. So I picked it up based on that. It turns out it was the template for modern Marvel versus Capcom. Like everything, MVC3 is Tatsunoko versus Capcom. Like gameplay wise, it's just completely that game. And I don't think a lot of people realize that because Marvel vs. Capcom has so much wider of a reach. But if you go back and play Tatsunoko versus Capcom and then play MVC3, you'll realize that the mechanics are just straight up copy pasted from that.
Yeah, it feels like kind of a forgotten note in history, at least from Western audiences. So I'd like to see it get another chance here. Other things in the direct that stood out to me. I'm just trying to rack my brain. Castlevania Dominus collection. I don't think I saw that coming. That's a collection of the DS Castlevania games, and I don't know if you watched our reaction back or not, but the funniest thing happened during that. Castlevania popped up on screen,
and Derek died.
His stream died. So like he just saw that it was Castlevania and had no idea what it actually was. And he was gone for the entire trailer.
That is the universe just messing with Derek at that point.
Oh, so funny.
That is one that I intend to pick up. So my brother is a big Castlevania fan in my family. I am very much like I don't even know what you call it, like a super casual Castlevania fan. I was one of the guys who picked up Symphony of the Night when that came out, and I was like, rad, I love Castlevania, and then just never played the series again. I'm just going to chalk it up to having been a broke boy and not being able to afford all the games I wanted back then.
I was a child, so I didn't get to play those.
There's that too. That's an excuse that works. I was a grown man with no cash. But my brother bought those games, and he to this day insists that they're the best Castlevanias of all time. So being a little more mature and still broke, I'm going to try to find a way to get those and play them. But no, in all seriousness, I've seen the collection. I plan on picking it up and trying it out because those are a blind spot for me. But they look like excellent games. And by all accounts, I've been hearing that the way Konami handled doing a DS game on the Switch is like one of the best implementations of it so far.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually haven't looked into it too deeply. I was planning to pick it up today, because Castlevania is also kind of a blind spot for me. But I'm a big Metroid fan, and Vania is the other half of Metroidvania, and the DS games I believe are the biggest examples of that. So I definitely want to give these a try. It's cool too that the vast majority of the Castlevania series is now available on Switch, because you have the Anniversary Collection, there's the Advanced Collection, we have the Dominus Collection now. There's only a select few that are missing, not counting like Lords of Shadow, which is a vastly different kind of game.
Yes, it is.
Notably, though, Castlevania Symphony of the Night is not available on Switch still, or anywhere, really.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I contend, just in my own very limited personal opinion, that's the best Castlevania, but I'm probably wrong. It's the most famous one, though. I don't think there's any arguing that.
No, not at all. Another big game, and this was actually the first one in the direct side of the Double Decker Direct. And that was Tetris Forever. And I'm gonna be upfront. Like, I'm not a big puzzle game guy. The one puzzle game that I vibe with, though, has always been Tetris. I really like Tetris. And this is a really cool package. It's a bunch of classic Tetris games, but the most exciting parts about it for me are the new the new mode where it mixes all of the old versions of Tetris together. And like just a documentary built into the package.
Yeah, I think that that's really cool. You know, I have like a passing interest in Tetris. I'm not good at it at all. But I do like it. Like when I play it, I have fun with it. You know, I think everybody who plays games has played some form of Tetris. I had a friend who was obsessed with a freeware version of it in the 90s called Tetranet. And it was like the first ever, maybe not the first ever, but it's the first one I knew of that was an online Tetris game.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, you know, I became briefly hooked on that. I still every now and then will play Tetris 99 and try to win. I've won exactly once, but you know, I appreciate the series for what it's done and its historical value to gaming. And I know John had to be over the moon about this. And the idea that you have, I love the idea of a mode that combines all the previous versions of Tetris so that you're kind of really swapping between them back and forth. I'll probably pick it up just for that. The documentary is cool and all that, but it's really that mode that sells me on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. Like, I don't think I have any particular reason why I'd want to go back and play Famicom Tetris over like Tetris 99 or Tetris Connected, Tetris Effect Connected, which is my favorite version of Tetris. But like, there are a lot of versions of Tetris. Even like when we were watching the direct, Derek was like, "I've never even heard of some of these," and I'm like, "That's exactly why this kind of collection needs to exist."
Yep. I think stuff like that is cool when you can learn about stuff you didn't know about gaming in a package that it makes it playable. That's always a really cool thing.
Also, I want to shout out Digital Eclipse because they also did Atari 50th, which is an incredible package of old Atari games. I was behind the scenes on some marketing for that stuff back when that game was coming out. And I was just so impressed with that package. And it seems that they have done it again with Tetris.
Nice. Yeah. I'm really, Digital Eclipse does good work, and I'm really excited to see this Tetris package. I still need to pick up Atari 50th, but those are all games that if you appreciate the history of this hobby, they're really good pickup.
There were a couple things in the indie world that I thought were pretty cool. Peglin was one of them. The Peggle RPG.
Yeah. I saw that John, I knew John would be all about that. And of course he made a signature pegging joke immediately. But yeah, I think I'm not a big Peggle person. But I could see my kids getting really into these.
I mentioned it during the stream, but I think Peggle has the same kind of like response that I get from playing something like Arkanoid or Breakout. Just seeing the blocks disappear make my brain feel good. So I want to give it a shot. Interestingly enough, Peglin itself has been out since 2019, I think.
Oh wow!
In early access, the version that dropped on Switch is 1.0.
Wow, that is interesting. I had no idea that there was a Peggle RPG until the direct. So had no idea that it had been in early access, especially for 5 years. That's nuts.
Yep. So they got a surprise 1.0 drop with that. I still want to pick it up. I haven't yet. But that's pretty cool. Sea of Stars DLC is coming out next year. I did not really vibe with that game very much, personally speaking. Did you play it?
I did, and we're of the same mind on that. It just didn't click for me. I think the constant comparison to Chrono Trigger is what soured me on it. I think the game is fine, but I don't think it lives up to the pedigree of what is, in my view, one of the all-time greats in gaming. Like Chrono Trigger is a top 5 game of all time for me. And Sea of Stars, good game, but good games don't make it to my top 5.
It's interesting for me because I think it looks beautiful. It sounds fantastic. The gameplay is actually really interesting. The one part of it that just didn't work for me was the story and characters. And
yep,
unfortunately, that's a really big part of RPGs. So when that falls flat, it's hard for me to stay invested.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny to think of because it's intentionally presented in a very similar way, but it is that writing that kind of doesn't do the rest of the awesome mechanics justice. Because it is a fun moment to moment game to play, but you need that story to keep you playing, and that's what is also a missing element for me.
There's a very good chance that the game's story takes a turn or picks up at some point later on, but it unfortunately was taking too long for me.
Yeah, because it's funny because Ash has mentioned repeatedly how much he loves that game. My best friend Nick, who I share a lot of gaming opinions with, also told me that it was like incredible to him and he could not put it down. And I just had that same thing with you where I played the first several like dungeons, if you will, like main story quests, and I just wasn't finding anything that was keeping me hooked from a narrative perspective. I was like, the game's fun enough, but I'm not in love with these characters. Like I don't want to know what happens to them next because nothing has happened to pique my interest yet. And so I put it down and I just kind of haven't looked back. And I feel bad for that because a lot of people close to me tell me it's an excellent game, but I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, I also always struggle with like how I critique um games, especially indie games, because it's very clear that a lot of love, passion, and hard work went into the game, and I never want to come off like I'm uh dismissing that, right? Um it's clearly a passion project. Unfortunately, it just didn't land with me, but it did for other people. So that's still a success. It's getting a DLC, so the people who loved it get more, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. No hate intended to people who love Sea of Stars. If you love it, I'm happy for you. I wish that I'd clicked with it the way a lot of people in my life did. It just didn't work out for me. And unfortunately, we live in a world where there's just too many games. So if a game doesn't grab me early enough, I move on to the next one.
So this one wasn't actually in the. Well, actually, we'll go to that one after this next one. Yakuza Kiwami. They ended the show with this one. Uh, I thought that was weird, to be honest. What did you think?
It didn't feel like a final announcement kind of deal. Because it's a port of an older game to the Switch, and I get that if you're a Switch fan, it is if you're the rare Switch fan, loves the Switch, loves Yakuza, but hasn't played it on your PlayStation or Xbox or millions of other platforms, including the Wii U, um, then sure, be super excited. But to me, it just felt like this was not like a one more thing kind of announcement. Like it didn't generate. Like I looked at it and I was like, neat, and then that was it. I was like, this is not like a. There were other games in the direct that you probably could have pulled this move with that would have been more exciting. Like if you had put Marvel vs. The Capcom Fighting Game Collection 2 as the one more thing in there, justifiable. Absolutely justifiable. The revival of Capcom versus SNK and Power Stone, people would have been like, perfect, Nintendo, chef's kiss. That's what you put at the end of a direct. But I don't think many people were like, oh crap, Yakuza, a really old Yakuza.
That's the weird thing. It's just Yakuza Kiwami. I think it would have been a very different conversation if it had been the whole series, or at least a substantial amount of them, right?
Yeah. If you were like, the first 5 Yakuza games are coming to Switch, people would have been justifiably hyped as heck. With just one, and it not even. I don't know. It's like a PS3 game coming to the Switch. It does in 2024. It doesn't hit the same way. If you had said this in 2017, yeah, people would have been justifiably excited. But yeah, it just felt like a weird way to end off a partner direct. Unless there is a plan like in motion to bring all of these games over, but I still feel like you announced that then. That's how you justify its placement.
Yeah, just announcing just Yakuza Kiwami doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, kind of, the direct kind of ended on a wet fart, if you ask me. But I still think it was pretty decent. there are a lot of games there that I want to play. A lot of them are remasters and re-releases. Like that very much is the case here. But there's still things I want to pick up.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, like I say, I really struggle because I think that the gaming community sees a 7 out of 10 as being just horrifically bad. And that's not true by the numbers. You're closer to 10 than you are to 1. It's significantly closer. And I think that when I say it's a 7 out of 10 direct, I mean, I saw some things I liked, but it wasn't me gripping the edge of my seat waiting for the next announcement. It wasn't, I wasn't out of breath at this direct. I felt like it was decent. It was a good, this should be considered, in my opinion, this is what I'd like to see as the baseline for directs. Like, this is your average direct. You get some stuff, there's a lot of different things to cater to a lot of different fandoms, but no one community is overserved. There's nothing that's going to blow your hair back like a crazy amount. Obviously everybody wants every direct to be a 10 out of 10. They can't all be 10 out of 10s. But I think this is a good, like, middle of the road direct. This is what I'd like to see them do as like their baseline, and everything beyond that is just gravy.
I guess my next question then, we typically get a regular Nintendo Direct in September every year. Like our typical schedule is, February or March, June or July, September. I don't think it's ever outside of September, is it?
No, it almost never is.
So this is a little odd. We had a partner direct in February, a traditional direct in June, an excellent traditional direct in June, mind you, one of the best ever.
Yep.
And then another partner direct in August. So what does that mean?
I still think we get our Nintendo Direct, our first party direct. I still think we get one either. So I can't break free of the Switch 2 speculation cycle. I think we get a traditional direct in September. And I think that is Nintendo setting up their own messaging marketing wise for the remainder of the year. To say, here's what Switch has going into the holidays. Because if you don't follow like the news media cycle, I've been in this for a decade now, which is horrifying. But if you don't follow the news media cycle, every company, not just Nintendo, but every company is trying to get their messaging out for what the holiday shopping season, like what they're going to have on shelves for the holidays. And so whether that is, the perennial Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle or some actual new games, Nintendo's going to want to tell people on their biggest platform they have available what they can expect to see for the holidays, what kids can ask their parents and grandparents and relatives for, and what overgrown kids like us can buy for ourselves. And so I think they need to have that. I think it's just kind of a planned part of their marketing push towards the end of the year every year. I think they have that, and I think in October we get not a direct. I think we just get like a YouTube reveal of the Switch 2, right?
Mario peeking behind the curtain again.
Exactly. He's going to be like, yo, I'm back, B. You liked this last time. Let's just do it again. So I think we do get our September direct and it'll be another one of those. There will be no mention of the Switch successor during this event. And then we'll get the actual Switch successor reveal in October. Because I think Nintendo, I've said it time and again, they're going to go to a playbook that they know works. And so they're going to be like, yeah, October reveal, March launch, kicked ass last time. Let's just try it again and see if it plays out the same way. Because honestly, a repeat of this console's performance for Nintendo would be the best possible outcome.
Yeah, 100%. That said, I do question like the September Direct, because I feel like we know their whole year's lineup, don't we?
I mean, we do, but you have to remember that we know, like we as in us, right? Like Nintendo, when they do these directs, they get reported out way more than in the traditional gaming sphere, right? Like publications that don't traditionally host gaming content still report on Nintendo Directs. So you'll probably see Jimmy Fallon talking about Brothership or whatever. You'll see people. USA Today will post something about Nintendo's plans for the holiday season, what games are coming out, because parents that are not connected to the games industry will start thinking, okay, my kid's got a Switch. What do I buy them this year? What do I get them? Is there a new Switch coming out? Do I buy them a game for this Switch that they got? People that don't know gaming are going to start asking those questions. And if Nintendo puts out that September Direct, well, they'll have a fresh slate of information to look at. Like, oh, hey, there's a new Mario and Luigi game coming out. I'll buy that for my kid. So I think it's more aimed at people that are not like us, right? People that don't know, that don't follow gaming very closely, if at all.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I am curious where in September they'd position that, because we have the end of the month it's capped off by Echoes of Wisdom, so you might have a little reminder that that's coming. And then after that, the only first party major releases are Mario Party in October, and then Brothership in November.
Yeah, and to be fair, Nintendo is not shy about releasing December titles. So there could still be a December title in the pipeline. So they could potentially just do one of those directs that is not super fun to watch, where they do deep dives into a handful of games. So it could just be, a ton of info about Zelda, a ton of info about Brothership, a full overview of Jamboree. And then they could just, and announce one more title. Like, hey, here's a December game that we're going to release. It's something to do with Pikachu. because of course it is. Or it could be Xenoblade, which it won't be. But I mean, they did drop Xenoblade 2 in December.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, crazier things have happened, but I think Nintendo will have a December game. And then from there, I think it's just all bets are off. It's Switch 2 time come 2025. I think Nintendo is going to go quiet for a bit after the end of this year.
I mean, we do have a January game.
We do.
We have Donkey Kong Country Returns.
That's
in
right.
January for some reason. Yeah, and I think it would make sense for us to even get like one or two like February, March type games. They typically like throw a Kirby or something lower key in that time frame.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like I said, Nintendo released 20 3DS games. Just Nintendo released 20 3DS games between 2017 after the launch of the Switch and 2019. Mm-hmm. So it's not like Switch 1's going anywhere. Nintendo is going to continue to release Switch 1 games probably for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think so too. They'll be in a unique position as well, where the Switch and Switch 2 are kind of the same thing while also not being the same thing to some degree. So releasing a game for Switch 1 is just like getting a new game for Switch 2. It's different than like, the 3DS situation where the 3DS was the 3DS. You had to play that game on your 3DS.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think anybody expects Nintendo to scrap backward compatibility this generation or this upcoming generation. And so, yeah, a new Switch 1 game, presumably, because again, we know nothing, right. But presumably will be playable on Nintendo's upcoming Switch. I saw somebody get mad at me the other day calling it the Switch 2. I was like, what do you want me to call it? But yeah, I think that Nintendo, if they are as smart as I like to think they are, they will make sure that you can buy these Switch 1 games and play them on the Switch successor when that comes out.
And then I guess like the last thing before we wrap up here, it was noticed that there is a Guilty Gear Strive Switch banner at PAX West.
Yes, I scanned it. So, which unfortunately just brings you to a link tree with no info about it, but that's definitely real. I don't have any info outside of the fact that would be a hard photo to fake. But I'll be at PAX today as of the recording of this. So, if you're watching this on Patreon when it goes live, I'm there now. I'm in the building right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, I got there yesterday. But I have no reason to disbelieve this. This is something that makes a ton of sense. Arc System Works put Dragon Ball Fighters on the Switch, which runs amazingly well. Is it going to look as good as it looks on PS5? Absolutely not. Is it going to play as well? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, this is an exciting get. I kind of wish that, alongside, Dragon Ball Fighters happening later on, I think Guilty Gear Strive could have maybe just been a launch game, like simultaneous launch. It's kind of weird that it wasn't, but at least it's happening.
Yeah, I can't be mad at it. So, and I've not played Strive, so this is a great opportunity to try it. Yeah, I think that, this kind of goes to show, though, that the Switch has more life in it than people probably think. I think because we're in the longest console generation Nintendo has ever done, that it feels like things should be quieter, especially because if you look historically at Nintendo, at the N64 and at the GameCube especially, those last years of those consoles' lives just barren. Like, it was quiet. Nintendo had very obviously shifted away from development for that console and onto the, whatever came next. But Nintendo seems to still be putting a lot of effort in on the Switch, more so than we're used to seeing. And I think that speaks to the fact that in an industry where making games is more difficult than ever, Nintendo seems to have found like the sauce, right? Like they just know how to deliver games consistently now, and to do so without ballooning budgets to such an extent that they're losing money on the development of these titles.
Yeah, I think, it would be silly for Nintendo to not keep making Switch games for the next couple of years, because that's free money.
Yeah. You've got 100-something million of these consoles out there. You're definitely going to keep supporting them.
Well, you've got PAX coming up here soon. You actually got to hit the road. Do you want to let people know what's going on at PAX?
Yeah. So as much as I can talk about, because obviously GVG has a busy PAX schedule. We are going to be doing this the way we did in the old days, just covering what's on the show floor, getting you coverage as quickly as possible. You should stay tuned to the GVG's YouTube channel. If you're listening to this outside of our YouTube channel, that's youtube.com/@GVG. You can find all our latest coverage from PAX. We will be playing Zelda Echoes of Wisdom on the show floor. They've already announced they have that there. We'll be checking out any official Nintendo first-party titles. We'll be checking out a bunch of third-party stuff too. I can't tell you what I'm playing yet because I'm bound by NDA about some of it, but I've got meetings and lots of them. So I will be playing lots of secret games and lots of not so secret games, but stay tuned to our socials, twitter.com/@GVG, youtube.com/or GVG official, youtube.com/@GVG. And if you want to join our winner's circle, get episodes of The Win early, find out stuff there, patreon.com/GVGaming is where you can do that for as little as $5 a month. But yeah, stay tuned. We have lots of info coming about PAX West, and that'll be coming up over the next couple of days and weeks. And my boy Brandon here will be helping me get some of that to you.
So keep your eyes glued to your YouTube screens, specifically on GVG's channel. Don't go anywhere else. If you do, I'll come find you. But until then, keep the games good and the vibes greater. Bye now.
Bye.